Welcome to Rosetta Academy. Guest complaint handling techniques and service recovery focus on hotels and hospitality. So, imagine this, right? You are midway through your shift at the front desk. The lobby is just completely packed, and suddenly you see a guest marching towards you.
Oh, yeah, the absolute worst feeling.
Right. Their face is red, their posture is super rigid, and they look, ready to just scream about a ruined trip. Your stomach immediately drops.
It is easily the most dreaded scenario for anyone working on the front lines of hospitality. I mean, the natural human instinct when faced with that kind of aggression is to either freeze, get defensive, or, well, just try to pass the problem off to a manager as quickly as possible.
Yeah, exactly, because
And
dealing with angry people feels like an absolute nightmare. But what if I told you that the furious guest storming your desk is actually holding a golden ticket?
right, it sounds crazy, but we really need to look at the math behind that frustration.
Oh,
Because if you look at the broader industry data, a staggering 96% of dissatisfied guests never complain to the hotel staff.
right, 96%, they just vanish.
They just pack their bags, leave, and never come back. I mean, they experience a failure like a dirty room, cold food, maybe a rude interaction, and they don't say a word.
So they take their money to your competitor, maybe, leave a silent two-star review online, but they never actually give you, the associate, a chance to fix it in person.
Exactly. Which means the 4% of guests who do come down to the lobby and complain are actually doing you a massive favor.
Wow. Okay, a favor.
Yeah. They are providing real-time operational data and giving you a window to save the relationship. So our mission today is to completely reframe how you view those interactions.
I love that. We're going to unpack the psychology of guest dissatisfaction, explore some proven frameworks to de-escalate tension, and show how empowering you, the Gen Z associate, can turn a one-star disaster into a lifelong loyal guest.
Exactly. And to figure out how to de-escalate a complaint, we really have to start with the psychology.
Right, because why do guests get so incredibly upset in the first place? If we're being honest, the reaction sometimes feels way out of proportion. Like, a guest will absolutely lose their mind over a 20-minute delay at check-in or, a missing bath towel.
Well, the secret is that it's rarely just about the towel or the 20 minutes. In psychology, we use something called cognitive appraisal theory to understand this.
Okay, cognitive appraisal theory. What does that mean for the person standing at the desk?
So, the theory explains that a person isn't just reacting to the immediate logistical problem. Their brain is instantly evaluating how that problem threatens their personal goals, their status, or their coping resources.
Let's ground that in the lobby, right? What does a threat to someone's personal goals actually look like when they're yelling at a young front desk agent?
Sure, picture an exhausted business traveler. They've been stuck on a delayed flight. They navigated awful traffic to get to the property. They have a massive presentation tomorrow morning, and their only goal in the world is just to sleep.
Right, they're running on fumes.
Exactly. So when you look at your screen and say, I'm sorry, your room isn't ready at 3 p.m., they aren't just hearing a minor scheduling hiccup.
Their brain is hitting the panic button.
Yes. The cognitive appraisal happening in their head is, this hotel is sabotaging my rest, which means I'm going to bomb my presentation tomorrow, which threatens my entire career.
Oh, wow. So the perceived threat is immense and deeply personal, which of course triggers a fight or flight response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And knowing that actually helps, right? It removes the personal sting. The guest isn't attacking you personally. They are defending their own psychological needs.
That makes total sense. And how you handle that perceived threat leads us to one of the most counterintuitive concepts in hospitality, which is the service recovery paradox.
Yes, and this paradox is heavily tied to Daniel Kahneman's peak end rule. You see, human memory doesn't work like a video camera recording every second of a vacation and then, averaging out the score at the end.
Right. We just remember the extremes. It's like a roller coaster. You don't really remember the slow, boring clank up the hill. You just remember the terrifying drop and the massive rush of adrenaline you feel when you hit the brakes at the very end.
That analogy fits perfectly.
Yeah.
So if a guest has a completely flawless stay, everything goes exactly according to plan, no issues, it's actually kind of emotionally flat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's forgettable.
Right. They just check out and go home.
But when a service failure occurs, it creates this massive negative emotional peak. The guest is highly stressed. However, if you step in and execute an exceptional recovery, you create a positive peak of relief and gratitude that is actually higher than the negative one.
And you give them a super memorable, positive ending.
Yeah.
But I have to push back here, though. Are you suggesting hotels should intentionally let things break just so we can swoop in, fix them, and look like heroes? Because that sounds like a terrible business model.
Oh, no, no. Nobody's suggesting you sabotage the air conditioning on purpose. Deliberate failure is always a bad idea. But in a complex environment like a hotel, inevitable failures will happen.
Right, pipes burst, systems go down.
Exactly. The point is that you must view those inevitable failures as your highest return on investment loyalty opportunities. The numbers are just undeniable here.
What do the numbers actually say?
Well, guests who experience a major failure followed by excellent service recovery are 12% more likely to rebook than guests who had a completely flawless, error-free stay.
Wait, really? They actually become more loyal because you fixed a mess.
Yeah, because it proves that you have their back when things go wrong. It builds deep trust. And because they feel so taken care of, they actually spend 22% more on ancillary services during that same stay.
Oh, like booking a premium spa treatment or ordering an expensive bottle of wine at the restaurant?
Exactly. Plus, they generate 34% more positive reviews.
That is wild. So if you're listening to this behind the desk right now, the takeaway is massive. When a pike bursts or a reservation gets lost, you have the power to literally boost the hotel's revenue and secure a lifelong customer just by how you react.
You really do.
But how do you actually do it? Like if a guest is in your face at 2 a.m. screaming about noise from the room next door, how do you keep your cool and trigger this recovery paradox?
Well, you need a toolkit. You need frameworks for emotional triage.
Triage, right. Like in an emergency room, you have to stop the bleeding first, which I guess would be the empathy and the apology, before you can actually stitch up the wound with a real logistical resolution.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You can't solve the logistical problem until you've solved the emotional problem. Top luxury brands use structured frameworks to guide their associates through this triage so they don't have to just guess what to do. The two most common are heard and learn.
Right. So heard is hear, empathize, apologize, resolve, and diagnose. And learn is listen, empathize, apologize, resolve, and notify. And both of them start with the exact same action, which is listening.
Active listening, to be specific. Guests want to be acknowledged way before they want a solution. If a guest is venting about a filthy bathroom and you immediately start clicking your mouse and say, "Let me send housekeeping," it actually infuriates them.
Because you cut off their emotional release.
Exactly. You have to stop typing, step away from the keyboard, make direct eye contact,
Yeah.
and just let them get it all out.
You're letting them drain the negative energy. And then comes the empathy and apology phase. But let's talk about what not to say here, because there's one phrase in the corporate dictionary that seems to drive people absolutely crazy.
Oh, I know the one. "I'm sorry you feel that way."
Oof. It is just the worst. It sounds so dismissive. When you say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," you are basically telling their brain that the threat they are sensing isn't even real.
Right, you're calling them irrational, which just dumps gasoline on the fire. You are actively rejecting their cognitive appraisal of the situation. Instead, you really need to validate it.
So what's a better way to phrase it?
A much stronger approach is to say, "I'm truly sorry for this experience, let's fix it right now." Or, "I can completely understand why you were so frustrated by this delay." You're validating their emotion as a rational response, without necessarily admitting legal or financial fault for the root issue.
Okay, so we've actively listened, we've validated their frustration, and we've apologized sincerely. That brings us to resolve. But what happens when the guest is incredibly heated? Say it's a full-on, highly public lobby confrontation, and they are just making a massive scene.
For those really high-intensity moments, there's a variation of the framework called HEAT. That's hear, empathize, apologize, and take action.
Notice the pivot there. It replaces resolve with take action.
Exactly. In a high-stress confrontation, the guest doesn't care about your diagnostic process or how you plan to investigate the issue later. They want to see physical momentum. They want to see you doing something to alleviate their pain right that second.
And one of the tactics mentioned in our research for these intense moments is cognitive redirection. How does that actually work in practice?
So it's a psychological technique used to break the momentum of anger. When a guest is hyper-focused on their frustration, you want to redirect their mental energy toward a neutral or future-focused topic. You introduce a pattern interrupt, often with what we call a peace offering.
I see the logic, but isn't a peace offering kind of risky? Like, if a guest is furious about a broken bed or a ruined anniversary dinner, doesn't offering them a free cup of coffee in the lobby just feel like a total slap in the face?
It absolutely does if you use it as a bribe or substitute for a real solution.
Mhm.
The timing is completely critical here. You never offer the coffee before you validate the emotion. You use cognitive redirection while you are taking action.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you say, I am moving you to a suite on the top floor right now. While I get those keys programmed, please let me buy you a drink at the lounge so you don't have to stand here at the desk.
Ah, okay. So it changes the physical dynamic. It forces their brain to process a kind gesture, which physically lowers their defensive posture. You're shifting the narrative from me versus you to us working together to get you comfortable.
Yes. But, this brings up a crucial operational roadblock. These frameworks, herd, learn, heat, they are brilliant on paper,
Mm.
but they only work if the associate actually has the power to use them. Because the single biggest bottleneck in service recovery isn't an uncooperative guest. It's internal hotel bureaucracy.
And this is the reality check for our Gen Z listeners. You can have the best psychology training in the world, but if you have to abandon the front desk for 15 minutes to go find a manager to approve a complimentary breakfast, the recovery is dead on arrival.
Which is exactly why we have to talk about autonomy.
Yeah.
Let's look at the famous Ritz-Carlton rule established by their co-founder, Horst Schulze. He recognized early on that bureaucracy kills empathy.
So what did he do?
He empowered every single associate, from the newest housekeeper to the bellhop to the front desk agent, to spend up to $2,000 per guest per incident to resolve a complaint, completely independently without asking a manager for permission.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. If I'm a 20-year-old front desk agent on my third week on the job, is a luxury brand realistically going to let me comp a $150 dinner without pulling me into the back office and firing me?
If the hotel is well managed and actually understands the math of hospitality, yes. The justification for handing that kind of financial power to a young associate really comes down to customer lifetime value, or LTV.
Walk me through that LTV math. How does giving away $150 make financial sense?
Okay, let's say a guest has a miserable check-in experience, their room smells like smoke, and they're ready to just walk out. You, the associate, use your autonomy to upgrade their room and comp their $150 dinner on the spot to make it right.
Okay.
You have not lost $150. What you have done is protect the $5,000 that guest is statistically likely to spend with your brand over the next 10 years, because they are now fiercely loyal to you based on how you handle the crisis.
Wow. You are deploying a small amount of capital instantly to protect a massive future revenue stream.
And the word instantly is the key there. The industry tracks something called the golden hour, or the 5-minute rule.
The 5-minute rule.
Yeah, the average hotel takes roughly 23 minutes to fully resolve a guest complaint. But the data shows that resolving an issue in under 5 minutes yields 3 times higher guest satisfaction.
Wait, really? So the exact same resolution, like comping the breakfast or moving the room, is worth 3 times more if it happens in 5 minutes instead of 20.
Exactly. Speed is a proxy for caring. And here is the metric that should make every hotel manager rethink their bureaucracy. Every single minute a front desk agent spends checking with a manager, overall guest satisfaction drops by 2.3%.
So if you make a guest wait 10 minutes while you hunt down your supervisor, you've just incinerated 23% of that guest's goodwill.
You have. The delay literally destroys the service recovery paradox.
But beyond the guest, this lack of autonomy takes a massive toll on the associates themselves, right? If you're listening to this behind the desk, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Dealing with angry people while having your hands tied behind your back is just exhausting. It's a phenomenon called emotional labor.
It is. And emotional labor is a primary driver of burnout in hospitality. When an associate is forced to read a corporately approved apology off a script, but has absolutely no real authority to fix the guest's problem, it creates a toxic dynamic.
Because the guest immediately recognizes that the empathy is fake, which makes them feel patronized and angrier.
Right. Meanwhile, the associate feels utterly helpless and just absorbs all that negative energy.
But the data in our sources shows that when you give Gen Z workers actual autonomy, that dynamic flips. When associates are allowed to give unscripted, authentic responses, and they know they actually have the authority to fix the problem staff, satisfaction improves by 29%.
Because it turns a high-stress confrontation into an empowering moment of problem-solving. You stop being a human shield for corporate policies, and you become a trusted professional.
Mm,
Autonomy really is the ultimate superpower for the modern hospitality worker.
I love that. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the modern hospitality environment because, it isn't just the physical lobby anymore. A huge percentage of service failures happen on the digital front line.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking WhatsApp messages, social media DMs, and online reviews. How do we translate heard and learn into the digital space?
Well, the underlying psychology of validation and speed remains exactly the same, but the digital channels have very strict rules of engagement. Speed is even more critical here because the guest can't actually see you working on the problem.
Let's go channel by channel. What are the expectations for, say, WhatsApp or SMS?
If a guest texts the property, they expect a response within 5 minutes. You literally have to treat it exactly like texting a friend.
Because ignoring a WhatsApp message from a guest is the exact same thing as letting them stand at the front desk staring at you in silence for 3 hours. The medium is digital, but the disrespect feels identical.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Now, for social media platforms like Twitter or Instagram, the industry operates on the 3-response rule.
The 3-response rule.
Yeah, so if a guest tweets about a dirty pool, you reply publicly to acknowledge and apologize, and then you immediately transition the conversation to direct messages to resolve it. You never litigate a complaint in a public thread.
And what about the permanent public record? Things like Google or TripAdvisor reviews.
The standard there is a 24 to 48-hour response window. But the psychology here is completely different.
How so?
When you reply to a negative public review, you are no longer trying to save that specific guest. I mean, they are already gone. You are performing service recovery for the thousands of future guests who are reading that review to see how your brand handles criticism.
You're proving your character to an audience. But honestly, keeping track of all these digital channels sounds overwhelming. How is a single front desk agent supposed to monitor WhatsApp, Twitter, TripAdvisor, and the physical lobby all at once?
They don't have to, thankfully. This is where the integration of artificial intelligence comes in, specifically systems we refer to as the AI Sentinel.
Okay, we need to explain how this actually works because AI Sentinel sounds like a sci-fi movie villain coming to automate away hotel jobs.
It really does sound like that, but it's quite the opposite. It's a tool that empowers the human associate. The AI Sentinel integrates directly with the hotel's property management system and the physical IoT, the Internet of Things devices in the rooms.
Okay.
And it uses natural language processing to scan massive amounts of incoming text data for negative sentiment.
Walk me through an example of the AI and the associate working together on this.
Sure. Let's say a guest sends a WhatsApp message saying, "It's freezing in here and the Wi-Fi is garbage." Before the human associate even reads the message, the AI's natural language processing categorizes the complaints.
So it knows what's wrong instantly.
Yes, and it instantly checks the smart thermostat in that specific room and verifies that the ambient temperature has dropped to, say, 62 degrees. Then it checks the router and sees a bandwidth drop.
Oh, wow. So it diagnoses the problem before the associate even has to investigate.
Exactly. It then pings the associate's dashboard with a verified alert and a suggested action. Historically, a hotel might not know a guest was cold until they checked out 3 days later and left a 1-star review.
And by then, the recovery window is completely closed.
Right. The AI Sentinel shrinks that recovery window from days to an operationally actionable 11.3 minutes.
So within 11 minutes of that text, you can have engineering fixing the Wi-Fi while an associate knocks on the door with extra blankets and a complimentary hot chocolate. That is the service recovery paradox completely weaponized by technology.
It really is. And hotel leadership tracks the success of this using very specific KPIs or key performance indicators. If you're an associate, you need to understand these metrics because when your general manager is stressing out over a dashboard during the morning briefing, this is exactly what they're looking at.
Break down those KPIs for us. What dictates whether a shift was actually successful?
The most critical one is first contact resolution, or FCR. This measures how often a complaint is fully resolved in the very first interaction, without the guest having to follow up and without the issue being transferred to a different department.
So the guest complains, you fix it right then and there, case closed.
Right. And industry data proves that a 1% lift in your first contact resolution drives a 1% lift in overall customer satisfaction, or CF. They are intrinsically linked.
Which, again, proves why the $2,000 Ritz-Carlton rule works so well. You can't achieve first contact resolution if you have to go ask permission to solve the problem. What else is on the manager's dashboard?
Well, there's first response time, or FRT, which tracks how fast you acknowledge the issue digitally or in person. And finally, there's the reopen rate.
What exactly is the reopen rate?
It is the percentage of resolved tickets that guests actually have to reopen because the issue wasn't permanently fixed. Think of it as the truth serum for your first contact resolution.
Ah, I see. So if your front desk team boasts a 95% FCR, but your reopen rate is spiking, it means associates are just slapping a quick bandage on problems to close the software ticket and look good on the dashboard, rather than genuinely fixing the root cause.
Exactly. Which brings us full circle back to the heard and learn frameworks, specifically that final letter. Diagnose or notify. You can't just hand out a free drink and move on.
Right.
You have to log the broken pipe in the system so engineering can actually fix it. Or the next associate on the evening shift is going to deal with the exact same angry guest.
A complaint isn't just a moment of tension to survive. It is vital operational data.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you, the Gen Z hospitality professionals out there on the front lines? Let's bring it all together. The next time a guest marches up to your desk furious about a service failure, remember, this is not a personal attack.
Right. By understanding the psychology of cognitive appraisal, their brain is simply reacting to a threat. You can de-escalate that tension by validating their experience.
You rely on frameworks like Learn and Heard to navigate the triage process. You act with intense speed, utilizing that 5-minute golden hour. And most importantly, you throw away the robotic corporate scripts.
You use genuine, unscripted empathy backed by your autonomy to actually solve the problem. When you embrace that, you stop being a shock absorber for angry tourists, and you become a loyalty-generating powerhouse for your brand.
Mastering service recovery truly is an operational superpower. But if we connect everything we've discussed today, the psychology, the autonomy, and the technology to where the industry is heading, it leaves us with an incredibly provocative question.
Oh, definitely.
Lay it on us. Where is this all going?
Well, we know that proactive service recovery creates extreme loyalty. And we've seen how tools like the AI Sentinel are shrinking the recovery window. But as AI and IoT sensors get better and better, imagine a hotel that constantly reads room temperatures, tracks Wi-Fi drops, senses dining delays, and even interprets micro-expressions of frustration in the lobby via cameras.
The building literally becomes self-aware.
Yes. So what happens when hotels become so good at predictive recovery that the concept of a guest complaint completely ceases to exist? What does hospitality look like when every single problem is identified and fixed by the system before the guest even realizes they were about to be annoyed?
Does the service recovery paradox just disappear because there's nothing left to recover from?
That's the question.
Wow. If a hotel fixes your AC before you even feel heat, you never experience that massive negative emotional peak, which means you never get that massive positive peak of a heroic human recovery. Will perfect, frictionless AI service actually make hotels fundamentally less memorable?
It is the defining question that the next generation of hospitality leaders, the associates listening right now, will really have to solve. How do you manufacture deep loyalty when the technology completely eliminates the struggle?
What an incredible puzzle to leave on. So for your next shift, when you see that frustrated guest marching toward your desk, remember, that is not a disaster. That is your golden ticket to create a memorable experience. Thanks for diving deep with us today at Rosetta Academy.